this hour, Japan hit by the strongest typhoon in a quarter of a century. China woos African leaders with a $60 billion development package. Plus, with European markets down, we'll have a look at the opening bell on Wall Street. All that and much more ahead on a special edition of the International Desk. Welcome to the International Desk. I'm Lynda Kinkade. Nearly 14,000 people have been evacuated so far after the strongest typhoon to hit Japan in a quarter of a century made landfall. That was just one incredible scene in Osaka, where the strong winds from Typhoon Jebi ripped the roofs of buildings, while heavy rains forced runway closures and flight cancellations at Kansai Airport. But the severe weather threat isn't only in the Eastern Hemisphere. In the US, more than 1 million people along the Gulf of Mexico are now under a hurricane warning as Tropical Storm Gordon intensifies. Storm chaser James Reynolds is on the ground in Japan. He spoke with my colleague Christy Lou Stout earlier about what he's seeing.
The storm is now tracking into the Sea of Japan to the north of Honshu, but there are still storm warnings up for areas as far north as Hokkaido. It's obviously still raining in large portions of the country. So whilst the main threat of the violent and damaging winds is finished, obviously the tail end of the storm is bringing a lot of rainfall, and that can cause problems.
Gotcha. You know, Japan this summer, it's been a really cruel one. You know, Japan has been hit by a number of major storms, extreme conditions like the heat wave earlier. How prepared were the residents there for this typhoon, for Typhoon Jebi?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This summer has just been crazy for extreme weather events in Japan. And as you mentioned earlier, this is the strongest storm to strike the mainland in 25 years. And I have to say, I saw a lot of people driving around in conditions they honestly shouldn't have been driving around in. So I think it did take a lot of people by surprise. You know, they've been through typhoons before, but ones which were not as powerful as this. So I think there are certainly a lot of people who were taken off guard by the severity and strength of this typhoon.
Well, for more on all of this, I want to bring in meteorologist Chad Myers. And Chad, Japan has suffered a pretty rough summer with floods and landslides and that heat wave, and certainly now this typhoon.
Well, certainly this has been one of the biggest typhoons that has hit the islands in a very long time. This country has really had a rough, as you said, rough year. And this was forecast to be a Category 1 hurricane. And it came on shore significantly worse than that. No question about that, that this was not just some 120 kilometer per hour, 130 kilometer per hour storm, because it's 120 kilometers per hour right now, after it's already taken the stuffing out of it and into the Sea of Japan. So almost 320 millimeters of rainfall in some areas. This is the area where the rain is going up the hill, up on top of the volcanoes, and then sliding back down as landslides, as mudslides, as flash flooding. So the storm does eventually go to the north of Vladivostok here, so away from Japan, but not before it puts down significantly more rainfall in some of these areas that have already had plenty to go with it. So the next storm system is still days and days away. We're not looking for anything really on the horizon. But if you look at these orange areas, you're already still seeing 100 and 150 millimeters of rainfall here still to come. Now let's look at some of these pictures of what we had here across from this storm. This was an amazing wind event and also a storm surge event. The wind pushed this water into Osaka Bay, the highest level Osaka Bay has seen for about 50 years. Some of these pictures where the cars are being tipped over, where the trucks are being flipped over, just simply an amazing sight. This is not, with the picture you see here, with this truck being blown over and this wind making just mist of this river, that is not a 70 mile per hour, 120 kilometer per hour storm. This is significantly higher than that for that to do that. And on the bottom left side of your screen, this truck, this this lorry comes completely apart, and part of it blows right into the water. Luckily, no one killed on this bridge, but obviously the wind howling through the cities here. And when you get that wind, almost a wind tunnel effect, where you have some tall buildings and the wind can't go through those buildings, has to go around them, that will accelerate some of that wind. And some of those wind gusts, I believe, will probably be in excess of somewhere in the ballpark of 200 kilometers per hour. And those are the gusts, but gusts could have at least got to there, Linda.
Absolutely incredible speeds. All right, Chap Myers, we will speak to you again very soon. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Well, heavy rains have sparked several chaotic scenes in China where mudslides were triggered in the southern part of the country. At least 5 people have been killed. And to the east, firefighters used a rowboat to rescue a baby trapped in a flooded residential building. Local authorities there saying other rescue efforts in the area are still underway, adding that nearly 1.5 million people have been impacted.